Well, to start off today, we want to look at the situation in Japan, where a catastrophic 8.9 earthquake struck off the coast there, followed by a devastating tsunami that battered many regions of the country. Now, officials estimate thousands are dead and thousands more missing. Throughout the day today, devastating pictures of cars being swept off highways by powerful water and people literally running for their lives. Now, the most major damage was to the port city of Sendai in the northeastern part of the country and the closest major city to the epicenter of the earthquake. And now the after effects include not only aftershocks, but fears of a radioactive fallout after a Japanese nuclear power plant northeast of Tokyo is having some major issues. I want to go now to Columbus, Ohio, and speak to Harvey Wasserman. He's the author of Solartopia, Our Green-Powered Earth, 80-2030. And Harvey, I know you know a lot about these kinds of things, and it looks like there are problems at several power stations in Japan. But it looks like the reactor at Fukushima Daiichi, that power station, actually had some more serious issues, some malfunctions with the cooling system there. Can you tell us what this all means?
Well, we don't know yet what it all means, actually. We do know that Secretary of State Hillary Clinton has said that the United States is shipping in coolant water. She may have misspoken. We think she's sending in batteries and backup generators, because if a nuclear plant like Fukushima loses power, it's not going to be able to get cool enough to avoid a major disaster. This is a very serious situation. This is the second time in 4 years that 6 or more Japanese reactors have been subjected to serious damage by an earthquake. We hope the Japanese learn from this. There are 55 reactors in Japan.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because I was so confused by that myself. When I heard that the U.S. was delivering coolant, it didn't seem to make sense that that would actually be of any help to the people there. Go into some depth, though, about the chain reactions that can happen here. Certainly it starts off and the systems fail and, you know, the cooling systems stop. But what are some concerns that can happen, you know, as the hours and the days go on?
Well, if the coolant system fails, the superheated radioactive fuel rods will melt, and if they melt, you will have you could conceivably have an explosion if there's too much water in the area and it turns into steam. It could blow off the pressure vessel and could result in a huge release of radiation. I've written an article about this. We have maps showing radiation releases, but the reality is that it could be literally an apocalyptic event.
Now, I don't know if this is too far-reaching, but I want to connect the dots a little bit. I know you've done a lot of research and a lot of writing about Chernobyl, deemed the worst nuclear power plant accident in the history. This happened in the area now called Ukraine. There were lots of radioactive, huge amounts of radioactive fuel dispersed into the air. Is this something that we could possibly be worried about happening in Japan?
Absolutely. I mean, I hate to say it, but absolutely. This reactor could blow. There could be radiation releases of an apocalyptic scale. God forbid, seeing the pictures, Japan has been hammered enough. But the reality is that they have built 55 reactors on or near earthquake faults. And, you know, we have 4 reactors here in the United States and California that are also very close to earthquake faults. If an 8.9 Richter scale earthquake had hit California at Diablo Canyon or San Onofre, enough radiation could have been released to cover the entire United States. If this happens in Japan, this radiation could blow deep into Russia and, you know, all the way into all over China, Russia, Korea, the entire western part of Asia could be affected.
It's certainly interesting. You mentioned California. A lot of people talking about not just the weather effects, but sort of comparing, as you did, you know, if nuclear plants in California were hit in the same way. I think it's so interesting to make those connections. I'm curious, are people in Japan right now reacting the right way? I mean, what kind of aid do they need right now, and what should they be doing?
It's off scale. I mean, looking at the damage that's been done by the tsunami, it's hard to conceive of what's really going to happen there. But to add in radiation is beyond belief. You know, we're facing in this country a decision. There's $36 billion in the 2012 budget for new nuclear plants. and how this country or any country could even consider building new nuclear plants in light of what's happened a second time now in Japan is inconceivable. We hope that the Japanese come through this, but we also are really praying that it doesn't wind up being a radioactive disaster as well as a tsunami disaster, because thousands and thousands of people will die. As you probably know, there's been a new study issued about Chernobyl that indicates as many as 985,000 people were killed at Chernobyl by radiation releases. That could easily happen again because this Fukushima reactor is in a much more heavily populated area than Chernobyl was in the Ukraine in 1986.
And as you were just talking there, Harvey, we were playing some pictures that are just absolutely crazy. These scenes of these houses just floating away. What was your reaction when you got up this morning and you saw this? Did this cross your mind that this could be an issue? I know that Japan gets the majority of their power from these nuclear stations, much more than any other country, I think, other than France, maybe. This is a huge issue for them.
Yes, because Japan, much of Japan, about a third, will lose electricity from these reactors now that they're shut. And God forbid there should be a major accident here at Fukushima. They may want to actually shut the rest of them. And without power in a situation like this, it's bad enough living in a regular time without power, but in an emergency time, you really do need power. People's lives in hospitals and other situations depend on it, which is one of the reasons so crazy to be dependent on nuclear power. These reactors are way too fragile, way too vulnerable. And, I've been up since 3 o'clock in the morning here. I was called by a friend of mine precisely because of this. I've been writing on this since pretty much it started. And when I looked at those pictures of the wave that came into Japan 60 miles from the coast, I thought there's no nuclear plant that could stand up to this. I mean, we've had the reactors that have been hit by the tremors from the earthquake, but thankfully none of them have been inundated by the tsunamis. The 4 reactors in California are very close to sea level, and a 20 or 30 foot tsunami smacking into any nuclear plant that close to sea level would be catastrophic. There's nothing you could do to control it, and the radiation would go into the air and into the water. This is an apocalyptic event. These nuclear plants have to shut.
Certainly an event that we will continue to keep our eye on as things are changing every moment. Harvey Wasserman, author of Solartopia, Our Green-Powered Earth 80-2030.